Bali, how is it in 2024? I feel like this place is forever changing, more so this time than any. So we've just got back from another amazing trip to Bali. We actually got married there. If you've seen that video, you're one of the ones that sent us a message. Thank you so much. We're actually overwhelmed with the amount of love that we've received off the back of that. But if you're one of the 130,000-ish people that have watched our 17 things to know before you visit Bali video, there's been some critical changes in particular to immigration and arrivals, along with a host of other things that are now kind of different, or our advice is very different to that video. So today I wanted to sit down and just talk you through some of those quite big changes since the last time we talked about it. And if you are one day keen to visit Bali and you want even more information than what's in these videos, we've just launched a Bali guide off the back of the success and how helpful our Queenstown guide has been for travelers. So in that, there is the best cafes and restaurants, everything you should know about the neighborhoods and where you should visit for your itinerary, where to stay, best things to do, a full WhatsApp database of all of our local driver contacts, visa instructions, and honestly, so much more. And we'll be keeping on top of that and updating it regularly, as well as getting a mobile app that you can take with you on the go for your travels. But the airport in Bali now has e-gates. And I never thought I would say that. Immigration in Bali is notoriously horrific. Ask most people, they'd say that they've spent at least an hour in those lines before, and we've always tried to give advice to bypass that as quickly as you can. We literally just coasted through. Stacey holding her wedding dress on the way, and we just coasted through, and I'm not kidding, we were through there within 2 minutes. That's absolutely insane compared to what it used to be. So there's 3 things now that you have to complete. So the very first thing is the visa on arrival, the e-visa, the 30-day visa on entry, whatever you want to call it. Most countries get these 30 free days. Not free anymore, sorry, my bad. It's $50 now. You can do that when you arrive. And if you plan to do it when you arrive, you're going to be joining this queue here and then waiting in this massive line there before you can finally make your way through. Doing it online saves so much time. It is a nightmare to fill out though, and you have all sorts of very weird requirements. I've got more instructions in our guide if you're interested in that. But essentially, if you work your way through that and you pay that, you are majority of the way through getting into the country way faster than anybody else. The second thing is the tourist tax. So this only very recently launched in February, and this is essentially for each person that comes into the country, into Bali, specifically, and it goes back into regenerating and helping with the culture and keeping things clean and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully we see that benefit actually pay out in the long run, but for now they are really starting to crack down on it. Tourists being stopped in the streets and having to prove that you have paid that entry fee. The final thing is the customs declarations, and this is completely free. Again, you can fill this out once you land, and this is actually after you've claimed baggage. And what we saw was a bunch of people getting to the front of the line, about to walk out into the country, and then being turned around and have to come back to fill out this form because they hadn't done it. So you had to connect to a really slow Wi-Fi network, hope that you could get it filled out, try and get the QR code on your phone. Absolute mission. Like, honestly, it is so easy to just fill it out in advance. Once you've completed those 3 things, I actually still can't believe this. You walk up, head to the left-hand side of the hall with your passport, face down, scan, boop, it opens up. Don't even talk to a human, and then you are in Bali. And a good hack would be to get some upfront seating on your flight to save even more time on arrivals. And we recommend that you do that with Jetstar because they offer the lowest fares in the game because they just don't assume that you want premium seating, luggage, and all those little bits and extras. So they pass those savings on to you. And trust me when I say that money still goes a very long way in Bali. But the flip side of that is that all of those luxuries are still there if you want to splurge out and if you want a little bit more comfort. As an example, my parents decided to pay the extra for the legroom. My sister decided to grab bundles to pick seats and so that she could have the kids' food pre-ordered. And like I said, upfront seating is always a hack because you get food early, you get off fast, and you can be out there drinking bintangs while everyone else is still just standing in that hot arrivals hall. Jetstar always gives us a link to the best fares to Bali and beyond as well. So check the description below and we'd really appreciate if you book any fares through there to let Jetstar know that you came from us. But the next thing to consider when you arrive is SIM cards. So I should say there is a lot of Wi-Fi in Bali and it is getting better, but we do recommend that you have a SIM card, especially to use apps like Grab and Gojek. Last time we recommended something we were shocked by the overpricing that was going on. We were saying pre-order this SIM card and once you show up, there was a kiosk next to the baggage carousel. And the people there that were doing it on the spot were paying 3 times the price that were about to pay by pre-doing it. That's no longer an option and it's for the best. So there's 4 different recommendations now. You can do roaming if you want to. Those are often very expensive, and it depends on what kind of plan you have from your home country. An eSIM is a great option for as low as $7 as a starting point. That means that you set it up now. Once you arrive, turn on the data, boom, you're connected straight away. The third thing is a local SIM. Once you come out of the baggage carousel area and you've gone through, there is now a bunch of new places there. I don't know the pricing. I'm assuming it's 20 or 30% more than what you would pay by going in town. Or the fourth option, and I ordered 8 of these SIM cards that get delivered to your address, to your hotel. Show up, there is instructions, you plug that bad boy right in, and it was just like done. Nobody ran out of data, and that was seamless. And having an airport pickup is a big consideration for ensuring that you do have data once you arrive as well. Now, you could just walk straight out and go jump into a taxi. We haven't caught a taxi in Bali in, I don't know, the last 5 trips because can be dodgy. There was a time, and if you read this online, oh, blue taxis, or they're trustworthy. Every taxi now is blue. Every taxi now has some kind of a bird on it. Every taxi has a play on those words. We recommend you stick away from it. The best option is to organize a private driver, and you can do this through your accommodation. You'll pay another 20 or 30% again just for the convenience of the whole thing, but sometimes that's worthwhile. Another option is that you find a local tour operator. We've got one of those linked below as well, and much more competitive pricing. Or you have driver over WhatsApp, like we've got in our database. Possibly the best one these days is actually there is a Grab lounge, station, meeting point, not sure what you want to call it. But a lot of people don't know about it because once you walk out of immigration, there is all of these people holding their signs for people that have pre-done their taxis or transfers, as well as people saying, taxi, 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 and it feels like there's nowhere else you can go. But if you go past them, through the car park and out the back, you'll see the big Grab lounge. And in there, you get to sit down, you can order your Grab, there's loads of Grab drivers around, which is essentially Uber. Very good pricing as well. So that's actually a great option. And if you've prepaid for one of these drivers or a local driver, they will help with your bags, which is very nice. What we spotted a lot more this time is there are the porters, and they have a particular kind of jacket on. People often arrive with family, shitloads of bags, and then some nice person comes up and says, hey, let me help you. They grab your bags, and people are like, oh, that's so lovely. Obviously, they want money. So you just have to keep that in mind that when you're arriving, you're going to have to pay them. I don't even know how much because we never have. We just take it ourselves. But just something to keep an eye out because we saw some real conflict. We saw some people just outright saying no. And then we saw other people, someone takes their bags and then they look at each other like, I think we've messed up. Oh, and you can see they're talking to each other. Beef was about to start. Traffic is one of the things you will hear a lot about. And it is real. It is bad. Every time we visit, it gets progressively worse. And this time we hadn't even left the airport and the traffic had already started. And I swear in the past, you used to be able to get a lot further either into Kuta or at least on your way into kind of Seminyak or getting out on the outskirts there. It is bad, and you really do have to be prepared for the fact that you're going to spend a lot of time in cars. We always recommend getting a scooter because you can somewhat navigate that. The reality of this trip for us, because we planned it with our families and friends, we were often, I was like getting us 15-seaters or 11-seaters, and there is just no option but to sit in it, kick back and use your 30 gigabytes of data on your phone or people watch out the window. Despite knowing all of this stuff pretty much off by heart, this takes so much brain power. I've actually stopped just to have a quick coffee, and we bought some Indonesian beans while we were there. Highly recommend if you like fruity notes in your coffee. It is so good and such a nice reminder of the coffee, which does tie nicely into pricing as well. We were concerned, given the feedback that we'd got, that things had changed in the last 18 months. We don't really feel like they have. So this video where I tracked every single price that you would need to know, I think is still very accurate. But one thing that has changed is that every cafe and restaurant now religiously are basically charging that at the bottom of the menu. There's a little 10% this, 5% that, and those are service tax, whatever else. So while a coffee like this in Bali would cost you 35K, realistically it's more like 45, 46, but by the time you add that tax on. Now that's still a shitload cheaper than what you're going to pay in Australia or New Zealand, and the quality is outrageously good, but it is a big consideration when it comes to budgeting or knowing what your cost will be. If that sounds expensive, don't be put off because you still can have really cheap holidays to Bali, but you need to stay in lower quality accommodation and you need to eat more frequently at the warungs. And this isn't updated advice by any stretch, but I know if you've stumbled in here and you're like, wow, okay, maybe not for me, you can, but you just need to be okay with eating much more local food and not having air conditioning, the nicest cutlery, and an Instagrammable kind of place to put on your social media. But that's the best food in a lot of ways as well. It's the actual local food, and we highly recommend do eat at some warungs. Go local. Try the food. That's what it's about. Another big update to the advice that I gave back then is an unfortunate one about money. Their exchange rates are nowhere near as competitive as they once were. We went back to the exact same place, and what used to be, I swear, we would change $500, $800, and we would lose like $2 or $3. Now it's considerably more. In between Canggu and Seminyak, somewhere in the middle, there is a bunch of places advertising really good prices. I don't know if they're charging a commission. But other than that, we still recommend that you take cash to the country and change it there, unless for some reason in your home country, wherever that might be, you get very, very good rates. But that's unlikely. But in general, and this ties in with what I was saying earlier, is that you really don't need all that much cash anymore. Get a Wise card so that you've got the best possible exchange rate you possibly can. I think we paid a $2 fee on changing $500 into Indonesian rupiah, and then we just use like Apple Pay or use the card everywhere, and you don't pay any fees on that. And the good news is that Grab, you can have your card associated to that. And every place that we just mentioned, all those little fees, all those restaurants and those cafes, the nice ones at least, not the warungs unfortunately, have EFTPOS machines and terminals. I was actually struggling to get through my cash other than paying some of the local drivers that we were using. So it's not as good as it once was, but then also they've moved to such a digital age in terms of the reception and stuff for their connection with the EFTPOS machines that you really don't need to be handling as much anyway. Good to have for like tips here and there and for paying your private drivers. But other than that, there's really not all that much that you need. So I mentioned transport a few times, and as I've kind of hinted to, Grab still really is king for getting around. That's great as well. It's not just restricted to cars. Like we were with my family a few times where we needed 6 people and we could get an extra large, or 6 of them go in the car and then we would scoot behind. One of the biggest things is there is far less restrictions now. There used to be these zones where it was like no pickup, no online car related service pickup, which is basically like Grab, go away, you're not welcome here. And we have seen locals pull suitcases out of cars, yell at drivers, yell at the tourists. It's not a pretty thing. Fortunately, that has all moved much further away. We barely saw any. So there's now just a couple of drop-off zones on the outskirts. So that's much nicer to know. To just share some prices between Canggu and Seminyak, because I've mentioned that a few times. If you get a Grab, it's kind of $10 to $15 to get between those two places. And that could take an hour in traffic now. Like it is quite bad. So that's great value, obviously. But that's kind of a single trip. And then if you wanted to go anywhere else, you have to pay another single trip. And anywhere else, single trip. So it does start to add up. Whereas you can get a private driver for $400K for 6 hours, which is the half day-ish price. And you can go to a cafe. We would stop off and get groceries. Somebody had found a clothing store they wanted to go to. We went to a homeware store and bought champagne glasses that we had found. And the driver waits, drops you off, chat over WhatsApp. We even went to a beach club one day. We went to the Uluwatu temple. Easily the best way in terms of getting around. It obviously works out a little bit more expensive than just taking a Grab, but if you did all of those things and added those up, it's going to be more expensive and you get so much more flexibility. So that about Bali still exists, and that is something that we love. And they appreciate $10 and some lunch, a bottle of water. We bought one of our drivers, Matt, we buy him a Coke, we bought him some Pringles, and he was just like, brother, thank you. It's a really sweet situation where everybody wins. And just to kind of close on the topic of this whole video, how is Bali now just in general? Look, the traffic is bad. It is getting worse. Pricing is relatively consistent. There is a lot more accommodation options, be it they are kind of all holding firm on pricing. There is a lot more food venues as well, and there is a lot more crowds in places. The development is crazy. The last time we were there, we were shocked by what was going on the Canggu shortcut. That now is full. It is busy, but they've set it up now that motorbikes can go both ways. Cars can only go one way from the Batu Balong side heading through to Barawa. So the traffic kind of flows and makes a bit more sense now. In a way, it does feel busy because those rice paddies, unfortunately, and those hubs, like they're kind of gone. It's just, it's chocker. So there is a lot more options and a lot more competition. But we have some friends that are living there, and their kind of feedback is that places that once sort of thrived are now not as full as they were because of the competition and now how much further out people are staying. So everything's kind of growing out together. And so that create some potential problems. I'm not quite sure how that will develop. Will places have to start to close because they're not monetizing how they once were? My best mate said he went to a place recently which used to be humming every Thursday, Friday night, Saturday night, humming. And they went there and it was like, where is everybody? They're just not here anymore. And that's just that competition that's kind of changing things. The positive for us is we don't really like going to a restaurant or cafe. You can't hear each other, and you can't find a seat. You can't, it's not really enjoyable. That's not really why we're there. That happens a lot less, but it is sad to see businesses kind of struggling. The flip side of that is that the quality of food and coffee and drinks and cocktails for some people in our groups, it is still so incredibly high. So this overpopulation, if you want to call it that, or that stretching of the commercial areas hasn't reduced quality, which is great. But as to how that plays out in another year, another 18 months, another 2 years, it's going to be fascinating to see. And maybe I'll do another update video like this if this is kind of interest for those of you that sort of follow along with Bali as a potential destination, or somewhere that you've been, or someone that you just love, like we do. We obviously we've got a lot of ties to Bali in that sense as well, from living there, nomading, holidaying, getting engaged, getting married. It's a special place for us, and it is just interesting to kind of track it and see it change over time. But anyway, I've chatted for more than enough. That coffee's hit me, so I'm just boom, boom, boom. Whatever. I'm talking shit now. See ya.